By the way, on this journey, your name will be Janet Grimm, like the fairy tales, if anyone asks.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Blacklist Season 10 Episode 13 review, The Sicilian Era of Color. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Indeed, Raymond, are you alright? On the Blacklist Season 10 Episode 13, there was another hour of action as Raymond pretended to be insane and we discovered more about Mira's backstory. The task force's operation depended on a steady supply of really terrible actors in the criminal and human worlds, and this was the second episode in a row without a blacklist case. His latest escapade saw him reclaim antiquities wherever they were stashed in different corners of the world. Sometimes it took a regular conversation, other times, gunshots would ring. If something became clear, though, it was that Raymond was on a personal journey of redemption. A reader made me aware of this theory, making me realize I had been looking at the whole issue from just one angle. There existed a connection between the past and the present, and that was through Mira Malik, Sia, and Kathleen Sutton. We met an ambitious Mira who was at the height of her career, caring for a baby. The task force is readily kept in the dark about what Raymond is working on, which is how he has gotten away with so much for so long. In his most recent adventures, he was able to recover ancient artifacts from all around the world where they had been hidden. Sometimes regular communication was necessary, while other times gunshots would be heard. But if anything became apparent, it was that Raymond was going through a personal redemption process. I learned about this theory from a reader who also made me aware that I had been approaching the whole problem from a single perspective. Through Mira Malik, Sia, and Kathleen Sutton, there was a link between the past and the present. When we first met Mira, she was in the prime of her job and raising a child. Sia got further involved in her lover Nigel's troubles by attempting to aid him when he was mired in problems. It was understandable how a single error or a string of errors could land you in serious danger. Sia was in trouble because Nigel started acting erratically and unreasonable. It was a significant achievement for a woman to work successfully in law enforcement at the time. When Mira failed to issue a warning or offer assistance when she could have, she allowed her partner to be slain, and this was the first corrupting act she committed. A woman who did that lost her husband as a result and was left with only her memories. For pennies on the dollar, Raymond quickly had a garage sale in the present with all of his favorite possessions. As per usual, what he was doing raised suspicions because, from what we know about Raymond, he never acts kindly toward others, at least not consistently. But as we got to know him and the other characters better, he began to hear their tales and share some of his own. The sincerity and altruism of his deeds became apparent at that point. He believed himself to be indestructible, so he had spent his entire life rushing toward money and expensive items. We come to understand that we still have a lot to learn as we get older, since age has a way of putting things into perspective. However, he had lived long enough to have acquired sufficient knowledge, and from what he could tell, his demise was imminent. With the exception of what was crucial, he had everything. He would cause great harm as a result. Whether or not he justified them as necessary evils, his acts had a real impact on people's lives, just as Mira's action had a lasting impact on Kathleen's life. He nearly issued a warning when he realized Sia was researching her mother's past. Perhaps what you already know, Sia, counts the most. Mira and your stepfather loved you and took good care of you. Nothing about that will change if the past is unredacted. That much was true. Sia had received affection and attention. She had never been without anything because Mira and Sia's stepfather had provided for all of her needs as a little child. It is never a good idea to go too far into the past since you never know what you'll find. It's reasonable to assume that Mira committed several other dubious acts over her career in addition to allowing Nigel to be killed and lying to her boss face to face. It's not like Sia didn't know what happens when you tamper with evil. Agent Wrestler gave me his first piece of advice before I joined this task force: don't owe Reddington any money. I'm not sure if I want to start falling down what feels like a slippery slope. Raymond was aware that whatever she discovered would fundamentally alter her perception of Mira, and nothing would be the same. I believe that taking her along on his adventures was a lesson in how a nice person can act badly in certain situations. There's nothing like getting thrown into a shootout to give you a crash education in self-defense. Raymond then stood back and let things play out when she didn't appear to be deterred. There are now two options: being stupid or seeking atonement. The Sicilian Era of Color stamps have a colorful history, and according to the Blacklist Season 10 Episode 13 spoilers, they last sold at auction for $2.1 million. It was ridiculous to sell it for $2,000, but perhaps happiness is something that cannot be measured. A preteen girl who was at best average in the game received Charlie Peel's World Cup ball. I was in anguish, and perhaps redistributing riches in that manner was noble. The majority of those items would have ended up in the collection of a millionaire. Let a woman bask in the lamplight. However, the numbers were still overwhelming. Cooper used the chance to inquire about the cases, and it almost seemed as though he had brought Agnes because he believed that was the only way Raymond would be willing to talk. Reddington, as you age, you come to see that life is not as complicated as we make it out to be. We make life too difficult for ourselves. Cooper, that might be, but right now things are tricky in my world, the realm of the Blacklist. Enhanced by your absence. Harold, do not worry. I swear, we'll resume our work soon enough. The Sicilian Heir of Color attempted to put certain doubts about the plot to rest and provided a clear explanation of Mira and Sia, Raymond's plans, in the Hudson issue. If Raymond keeps his word, the additional instances he presents could mean the difference between the task force's freedom and imprisonment. The senator posed a greater threat than Hudson, and the congressman found an ally whose intentions were misguided. There is no doubt that the task force is operating in a corrupt manner. We're going to find it. There was a small gap left by the absence of Blacklister, our regular source of action. How did you feel? Is Raymond truly giving of himself, or is that just what he wants us to think? Do you truly believe that the senator and congressman pose serious threats? Comment in the space provided. Thank you for watching.